When powerful people are charged with crimes, corrupt pressure on the legal system happens on their behalf. The pressure happens. And it works. It worked in the 1940s. It is working now. And yes, sometimes there's some stupid hook that they try to use as a pretext for these attacks. But they don't even need that, right? For the legal system to function fairly, even when politically powerful people are under scrutiny for alleged crimes, we must expect attacks on the people who carry out the work of the legal system in that context. And we must expect that they will need to be protected and defended. And then we must stand up to protect and defend them. And we should be making sure that they are not the ones who alone have to stand there and pay the cost, right? This ought to not be a scandal that they are the ones that pay the cost for. It should be a scandal on the head of people who are bringing corrupt pressure to bear to break our system to protect powerful people. If we've learned anything from history, we ought to have learned that about the intersection of political power and the law. If we have learned anything, we ought to have learned that. And so here's my question. Who's defending Fani Willis? I was at the courthouse today for the New York State prosecution of Trump in the hush money case from the 2016 election. It wasn't supposed to be the first one. Remember what was going to be the first one? What was going to be the first one was a trial of Donald Trump for the big issue, right? For him trying to throw out the results of the 2020 election so he could stay in power even though he lost. Prosecutors asked the judge to start this trial 2 months ago. The first trial date they asked for was in early March 2024. And had they been able to go ahead with the trial, there would be cameras in court, live broadcasting the proceedings. That's what was going to be first. Georgia prosecutors led by Fani Willis brought a RICO indictment against Trump and 18 other alleged co-conspirators for trying to overthrow the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. That was going to be first. What happened to that? Well, when it emerged, January 2021, that there was a recording of Trump live on the phone demanding that Georgia officials falsify the election results and declare him the winner. When everybody heard that tape, everybody over the age of 0 in this country knew that there would have to be a criminal investigation of that. I mean, that very much sounded like the commission of a very obvious crime on tape. The district attorney in the county where the phone call took place then opened that criminal investigation. Of course she did. How could she not have? But then what happened, right? They opened the floodgates on her in a way that is underappreciated in this country. First thing they did, Republicans in the state legislature decided that for the first time in the history of that state, they needed to give themselves a new power. They needed to give themselves the power to remove prosecutors from their jobs, even in the middle of a case. Now, Republicans in the Georgia state legislature never wanted that power before now in the whole history of the state. But now that Trump's under investigation for a crime, now they want that new power. This new law giving themselves that power, they passed it in such a rush, it suffered from what you might charitably call constitutional infirmities. They then had to pass it again, so they did. And in so doing, they created a board with all Republican appointees. It has a brand new power under the laws of the state of Georgia to discipline and remove prosecutors in the middle of their cases. A power they never had before, never wanted before, not before Fani Willis brought a case against Donald Trump. But that was only the start. Led by one of the Republicans who served as a fake elector in Georgia, Republicans in that state then formed a Georgia Senate Special Committee on Investigations. Oh, what investigations are they wanting to do? They are specifically investigating Fani Willis. They formed a new committee just for that purpose. The head of that new committee to investigate Fani Willis went to the Georgia State Republican Convention this weekend to brag about how he's about to subpoena her, to testify under oath and force her to hand over evidence to the Republicans in the Georgia State Senate. They're characterizing it as a financial concern, but he's been very explicit that the financial concern he has is that she's expending financial resources on the Trump prosecution. Republicans at the county level in Georgia are now saying they want to put her office through an audit. A Republican member of Congress from Georgia has filed an ethics complaint against her. The Republican chairman of the House Judiciary Committee in Washington, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan, has opened an investigation of her in Washington as well, and has subpoenaed her, and is now threatening to hold her in contempt of Congress, threatening to put her in jail. And now 2 Republican U.S. senators are jumping in as well. Senators Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley, just announcing a few days ago that they, too, are going to open a new investigation of this Georgia prosecutor, Fani Willis, this time opening this investigation in the United States Senate. They have created a maelstrom of political harassment and pressure, bringing it down to bear on this one prosecutor like a laser, because she brought this case against someone of their party who has political power. This is Republicans using their political power to try to shut off the legal system, to try to shut off the rule of law here so it cannot be used against their guy, against Trump. And yes, they also found themselves a hook. In Fani Willis's case, she dated someone on her prosecution team. You've probably heard about that. But you know what? In Georgia, romantic relationships are not grounds for disqualifying prosecutors. The Georgia Supreme Court has held that not only is dating someone not a conflict in a prosecution, they've actually held that it is not a conflict for a prosecutor and a defense attorney on opposite sides of a case to be married to each other. It is just not an issue under Georgia ethics rules. And you may or may not like that Fani Willis dated someone, but that is not grounds for disqualification of a prosecutor in Georgia. And that is not the reason they are trying to nuke Fani Willis as a prosecutor. Let's get real about this and take it seriously. Because what's going on here is they are taking apart the judicial system. They are fundamentally changing the judiciary in the state, in the entire state, all to protect this one powerful defendant in their own party, whom she had the temerity to charge, even though he has political power. And this is a test for us as a country. And so far, the person who is bearing the entire brunt of this is Fani Willis herself, personally and alone. And she is fighting, and she is not backing down.
You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial. They can continue on with their games, and I'm going to continue to do the work of the people. They can look all they want. The DA's office has done everything according to the books. We are following the law. They can keep looking. I'm not interested in them looking. They can look. I'm sorry they pissed off. Justice is now actually blind. Lady Justice is blind. So I don't care how rich you are, how powerful you think you are, who your daddy is, what your political party might be, how much money you think you got, and how evil your supporters are. All right. I don't care how many times they threaten me. I will gladly leave this place knowing that I did God's work. All right.
Fani Willis is ably defending herself. She is good at this. And she knew what she was walking into. But this story for all of us, this is not a profile in courage. This is a profile in cowardice. This is a profile in failure and neglect by us, by the country. Because the reason she is out there defending herself so ably is because nobody else is defending her. The rule of law depends on the people who enforce it being able to enforce it, even when those who are implicated in a legal proceeding are powerful people. These are human beings. They are not magic. They are not bulletproof. They are not superhuman. And right now, they have no one defending them as they are being asked to bear superhuman pressure and threat. But here, in reality, in this era of this Republican Party, there is a ton of inappropriate political pressure, improper, craven, pretextual, dishonest intimidation being brought to bear on prosecutors and on judges from the right, from the allies of the former president. And it is working. And there has been no significant countervailing pressure defending them. If you go after a judge's family, if you demonize a prosecutor and bring bogus allegations and charges against them, it is you who are breaking the American legal system, and you ought to be the one who pays for that. I mean, thus far, what's the price been? Other than getting heckled by fed-up New Yorkers on the sidewalk sometimes, the Republicans who are waging war on the legal system, proclaiming the illegitimacy of the legal system on behalf of Donald Trump. Up until now, they are paying no cost for it. I mean, in Georgia, Republicans there want credit for having not all immediately jumped up to flip the election result in 2020 when Trump told them to. Congratulations, great, kind of a minimum, but good on you. Now, though, what the Georgia Republican Party is doing is dismantling the independent judicial system in that state for the purpose of destroying Fani Willis and thereby destroying the case against Donald Trump. That, too, is the record of the Georgia Republican Party in the era of Trump. And they have help from Congress, and they have help from the U.S. Senate, and honestly, they have had help from the media, who too uncritically has been going along with it, assuming that, oh, where there's smoke, there must be fire. The history of the rule of law in this country tells us that the rule of law does not magically defend itself. And it is mortal, it can be killed. When it is attacked, it breaks. The rule of law in this country, in practical terms, is made up of people doing hard jobs who themselves can break when they are attacked. And right now, you and I, all of us, we are making history in this country. And the history that we are making is that there's no one defending Fani Willis but herself. And in the, noble alternate version of this history that we'd like to imagine we would be part of, the whole country would be up in arms about Georgia and about New York and about all of these cases, telling these people to back off the judges, back off the witnesses and the jurors, back off the prosecutors, back off Fani Willis, protect these cases, protect the rule of law. We imagine that's who we are as a country, but we are not showing it. We are not standing up to defend these people. At least, not yet.